Welcome to another edition of Risk and Return. This is Charlie Gasparino with my partner in crime, Bob Sloan from S3 Partners. We have a lot of serious stuff to talk about today. Breaking news on the potential war with Iran coming up. Before we get into that, just on a lighter note, I just want everybody to know there's a limited edition sneaker, an S3. What do you call these things?
Nike Pandas.
Nike Pandas.
We think they look amazingly sharp. Charlie, we're going to get you a pair.
With
sporting around town at Ilios. You're going to walk into Ilios and that looking very sharp.
Style with the S3 logo emblazoned on as I walk in. And by the way, it's the best data company in the world, as we prove week in and week out on the show. I'm sorry.
So if you're listening on YouTube or you're listening on your feed and X, we will buy you a pair. You sign up, prove that you sign up, hashtag your number. And as a listener, we'll buy you a pair. Whoever is the number 1,000th, we will buy you a pair. So if we get more than 1,000, we'll buy you another pair.
So we have to get 1,000 people signing up.
Yeah, today. If you're the 1,000th person to sign up, we'll buy you a free pair of shoes.
Oh, no, let's not do the thousands. You have to wait to 1,000. Let's do 500.
All right, fine.
500. Okay, guys, 500 and you're in. You get a pair of sneakers.
You get a pair of really designer, one of a kind Nike Panda.
And I'll even have Bob put on lipstick and put a kiss, like a little kisser right there.
You know what we'll do? We'll give you like a nice date. We'll give you like a nice data grid. We'll give you something, maybe a line of code.
Absolutely.
Put something on there distinctive to S3.
Absolutely. Okay, that's enough for the fun and games because we do have a serious show. It does look increasingly, Bob, and this will have market implications, obviously. And it's already having it, which the S3 data is foreshadowing.
Yes.
It looks like we're really coming really close to not nuclear, hopefully not nuclear, but war with Iran. And I say nuclear because it's always in the back of my head that they are doing what they're doing right now, not just potentially killing protesters in the street, but as we know today, they came out. It's apparently not a fake account. The official Iranian state account, I have this right? Yes. Came out and basically threatened to assassinate Donald Trump.
I think the quote was, "This time we will not miss," and so you have to take that seriously.
Okay.
I can't ever remember any state threatening the president of the United States ever
and getting away with it.
I
mean, especially someone like Trump.
Yeah.
So I think that, I love to see what the poly markets say, and maybe we can get a producer to give us the poly market odds on war with Iran right now, because I'm sure they're dramatically higher. The bombing could be any day now. Knowing Trump,
the one way to goad President Trump into action would be to say, "We're coming after you."
Yeah, the last time we missed suggesting that
they may have had a hand in it.
Crooks was, inspired by Iranians, which is maybe true.
Maybe we don't know.
There's a lot. We don't have enough time in the show to get into Thomas Crook's motives, and other than he was out of his mind. But let's get to the investment implications. Now the S3 data is sort of indicating the slow build to a war with Iran, and you're seeing it in certain numbers. Why don't we talk about that?
Shipping sector has rallied tremendously, but short interest is very, very, very elevated.
Now, why is that? Let's back that.
Well, because shipping is basically vital to the supply chain of every country in the world.
Shipping, if this thing does happen, theoretically, could be a problem through the Straits of Hormuz.
Sure, pick your shipping lane. It could be a problem, right? All sorts of possibilities in the air. And we've seen a slow buildup, but elevated buildup in short interest in stocks like Maersk, which is a leading shipping company.
Interesting.
And even though those stocks have rallied, so even though they've rallied, we've seen short interest climb into the rally. And
why did they rally?
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons. Sure, there's a positive and negative to this, right? The negative would be an outright war in Iran, not good.
Right.
If you think that the Supreme Court's going to overturn tariffs and things are going to go back to what they were pre-Independence Day, which is what Trump has said, then you'd say that there'd be even more trade. They've also rallied because there's been a lot more trade with China. China's output has actually increased, and they've said that tariffs really haven't had an effect on the production of major trading partners. The companies have actually eaten these tariffs, and so therefore it's more or less business as usual.
By the way, I am looking at the poly markets as of now. Unless I'm reading this wrong, it says it's a 21% chance it happens today, 32% tomorrow, 42%. I guess the 16th would be what, Saturday? 45% Sunday.
No, so for 16th for Friday.
45% Saturday.
Yeah.
And 51% Sunday, which is often the day they do it.
Right.
And then it jumps to 57% Monday, and Tuesday 65%. So they're saying this thing is coming. I mean, this is what they don't think it's today, tomorrow. Although I wonder, just how much of this is taken into account the latest iteration.
It's unprecedented. You are as experienced as any journalist there is in the world. I've never seen anything like it. I've seen a lot of stuff in my time. You've seen a lot of stuff in your time. I can't ever remember an outright threat to a sitting president, ever.
Iran does issue threats, fatwas, right?
This is more direct.
I don't think they've ever
this
done
is
it.
not you're the this is not you're the
Rushdie,
this is not you're the great Satan. This is not
right.
Death to America. This is personalized attack on the office of the President of the United States. And that is a new thing.
And by the way,
I don't think we've ever seen.
And there's credible evidence that they actually did try to assassinate him in the past.
It reads that way, but who knows with translation and whatever, but from Farsi to English, who knows if that's exact or not. I'm not trying to make an excuse. I'm just saying that could be a possibility.
So you're seeing it in the shipping stocks. Any other indices?
Well,
oil prices, what are they doing? They're
oil prices, people understand that if we are successful in Iran, and we have been, I think, we've certainly recalibrated the game in Venezuela, as we talked about last week. And by the way, that was an incredible interview that we did
with Robert
Koenigsberger.
Yeah.
And then we had no less a prince of the markets as Mohammed El Zarian come out.
El-Arian,
sorry.
Yeah.
Mohammed El-Arian. I'm thinking about something else. Mohammed El-Arian say, hey, this was really great. And it was great.
It was a very thoughtful conversation where he made the point, and just for everybody out there, Venezuelan debt looked good when he started buying it like 6 months ago. And he also bought the oil company, which is a proxy for Venezuelan sovereign debt because it's owned by, and it trades.
It's a national oil company.
And it was trading at the same, but he bought it at 12 cents on the dollar.
That's right.
The thing popped up, so
to 42 cents, and he told you to trade it. So I think
it might be too late to get in now, I think is kind of the.
Here's the thing. He told you that the asymmetry was at 14 cents, meaning in one-way trade.
Right.
It went to 42 cents. You made 3 times your money. Does it go to 60 and go back to 30? Possibly. He was telling you trade the range. That was his advice. But I think more importantly, to your point about oil, it's a game being played on so many different levels.
And it is three-dimensional chess.
That it may be even 4, right? So if you have Venezuelan oil come online, and that Iran now is giving China 2 million barrels a day, up from 300,000 4 years ago in the previous administration. So that's 7 million barrels a day that you are in control of. People understand that will depress the price of oil, and they're anticipating that. That is exactly what's happening in the oil market. So,
by the way, we do have a comment that's interesting.
Tell me.
Vincent Perillo on X. Gasparino, have you reviewed the tariffs on Vietnam and other Asian countries? Cost of clothes will be sky high. The clothing industry will not be returning to the U.S. like cars, pharma, etc. That will return to U.S. should there be an exemption for clothing. Thanks. Will return to, okay, will there be, he's essentially asking, will there be exemption for clothing?
Don't know.
I don't know. I mean, listen, Trump has exempted everything he can. If you look at his actions, anything that has an impact on affordability has been now exempted. I mean, we're like light years away. People keep, I think one of the silliest comments I hear, and I hear it often on my channel, Fox News, is that it's not endorsed by Fox News. This is just commentators saying this, just to make that clear. Let's say Fox News is endorsing this. But I hear these commentators say, well, look at the tariffs Wall Street got it wrong. Trump did tariffs and nothing really happened. Well, that's bullshit. Let's be that is rank bullshit.
Wait, can you say that again?
You could say this on. I can't say it on Fox, but I can say it here. That is like horseshit. And here's why. Liberation Day tariffs were up here.
Yeah,
tariffs are all down here now. After the bond market fell off the cliff, after people stopped buying our debt for like a couple days, where we need people to finance a $2 trillion budget deficit, and Trump has been just scrambling with Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, to put the genie back in the bottle ever since. Now, would I be surprised that if clothing prices go through the roof? I mean, because they're not really quite there yet. We're still at 2.7% inflation, which is above the target. But yeah, I could see it.
So, our data says something a little different, which is interesting. So importers.
This is on tariffs. Your data on tariffs.
On tariffs, not necessarily. By the way, it's a good question on Vietnam. I wish I had the answer specifically, but we're not like the tariff mavens here. But we do watch how tariffs affect certain sectors in certain stocks. So if you look at a stock like Nike, right, big importer, right, stock like Apple, big importer, et cetera. The short interest has remained very high in those import-sensitive importers, right? And that's telling you that the short interest is saying, we don't think that SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, will actually overturn the tariffs,
which is coming any day now. This ruling,
because if they thought for 1 second that SCOTUS was going to do that, you'd see tremendous cover.
Okay, so let's just for the viewer who maybe isn't like on top of tariffs all the time, and again, we're not tariff mavens, but we do follow this as a big story. Trump did cross-the-board tariffs, backed off a lot of them, but he did it under authority that's called under some sort of emergency authority known as IEPA, some sort of emergency act, saying that if it's a national emergency, I can enact a tariff, right? And so there it goes. So he bypassed the usual protocol, which is getting congressional approval for something that impacts the fiscal. It impacts the budget and the fiscal stability of the United States. I mean, that's usually it's usually mandated by Congress that they have to do these tariffs. Smoot-Hawley was the big tariff act.
Smoot-Hawley. Yes.
It's Hawley. It's Hawley, actually, not Harley.
Right.
Hawley. That was, I think, in 1930, enacted by
Herbert
Hoover.
Right.
A lot of people think it was one of the causes of the Great Depression because it essentially enacted all these tariffs, and it kind of slowed down global trade and exchange of funds and currency inflows and outflows. So I'm not saying I agree with that. I think the Great Depression was a lot of factors, including the fact that we raised interest rates at a time when we needed liquidity in the system. But be that as it may, that was a congressional mandate, right? It was literally Smoot-Hawley was Congress. Mr. Smoot, Mr. Hawley. Don't ask me who they are. Their first names. And Herbert Hoover signed it into law. Trump didn't do that. So the conventional wisdom is that the Supreme Court is going to say, no, this is like you went beyond your sort of authority as president, executive authority, and the questions during the interrogatory between the government lawyers and the Supreme Court and the justices suggest that they were going to say no, that these tariffs are unconstitutional, and then Trump would.
Markets don't believe that,
but the markets you're saying don't believe that.
No, they do not.
Oh, there's a ballsy prediction.
Well, it's not a prediction. It's what the data says. And that's one thing about, our company is that a good day for us is when it's 50-50. 50% of the people love us and 50% of the people hate us. It means we're doing our job. We're calling balls and strikes. That is what the data is saying to us. And that's why people use our data.
What do you think? Because this is like where it gets interesting.
I think, who said that public opinion is always ahead of the law?
Yeah,
there's a famous, was it Frankfurter?
That sounds about right, but I could be wrong.
I think the atmospherics right now are, I would say, unsettling in the least and alarming fear at the most. And so I think you have a world situation that would be, we don't need an overturn of tariffs at this point in time. I think it would be unwise of the Supreme Court. This is just.
But they'd be established precedent, though.
To do this today, next week, imminently, kick the can down the road for a month or two, let the world situation settle down, and then make your decision.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the sort of notion that it's imminent maybe put off because of the Iran country.
Yeah, I mean, this is we have.
But when they do rule, what do you think is going to happen?
Charlie, I'm gonna go with the market. I think the market's right here. I think they actually don't overturn.
I mean, I could argue it both ways. These are Supreme Court justices that don't like to, part of their sort of strict. What is what do you call these conservative justice constitutionalists?
They're strict interpretation. Was a constructionist.
Constructionist. That's
right?
it. Part of that whole theory is that you don't like to overturn the apple cart if it's established.
Well, the constructionists are what were the founders thinking at the time?
Yeah, would the founders want to overturn the apple cart?
That's right.
And let me tell you something. If they overturn this, again, Trump has theoretically other powers to impose tariffs, but I wonder, do you first have to pay back everybody, then reimpose them?
Well, I've always been
right, because we're talking billions upon billions here, right?
In excess of $1 trillion, right? And then all the lawsuits and by the way, the interesting that the plaintiffs' bar is lining up, predictably,
right?
Because we are a country that relies on lawyers.
So you would throw the country in the economy.
It'd be just as bad as Independence Day 1.
It might be something along that line.
That's Independence Day 2, and I actually think the real story here is if you focus on these tariffs, I just wish someone would go like this. We collected $1 trillion. We want to do a back-to-back with the Fed. I don't know how the Treasury would do that with the Fed. I don't know how they could actually not, it's not a related party. I don't know how they would get around all the legalities of dealing with one another. But I think if Trump really wanted to do something interesting rather than serve a subpoena
on Jerome Powell.
To Jerome Powell.
It's a whole other story.
Well, we're going to get into that. What they would do is they'd say, we're going to take the tariffs, let the Fed take down its balance sheet every year. We're going to collect these tariffs and we're going to shrink the Fed's balance sheet. Let the foreigners shrink the balance sheet.
It isn't better to shrink the deficit. It's better to shrink the balance sheet.
The question is, which one can you do? And sure, it's better to shrink the deficit, but which party has the discipline to do that? It is within his control to shrink the balance sheet if it's done this way. You take a $6 trillion, $7 trillion, $8 trillion, whatever the number is, $9 trillion, I think it's like $6 or $7 trillion balance sheet, and then you shrink it down to 2. The markets would love this. There's dry powder, there's the emergency backstop that people need, and it would be a put without a put, meaning you're not trying to have people take moral hazard risk, right? What you're trying to do is show people that the financial system is secure, and this is how we're going to fund the security. That would be a winning trade, and I think if they actually did that in front of a SCOTUS opinion, that would be how you get public opinion ahead of the law.
Well, obviously, he's not thinking about that. He's still talking about sending out checks to people and things of that nature. And
well, he's got credit cards capped at 10%. A lot of unintended consequences there.
I mean, there's so much news; it's hard to get to. We will get to the news items, but I do want to. Do you have any calls this week?
Yeah, we do.
Let's just get to a couple of your calls.
Let's bring them up, guys. Let's bring them up on the screen. So we have 2 bearish picks. We have United Airlines. Obviously, we know that. Right. They're reporting next Tuesday in the afternoon, and then
why do I know that? Help, because I didn't know that.
What is that?
Well, you said that United Airlines.
Well, you know what it is. You know the stock picker, ticker, right? Because one of the things that we're trying to get better at in this show is when we actually put a ticker on. Like, what the hell does the company do? So
they're a big airline, I think. They unite.
And then there's the PNC, obviously the financial services giant. Right. We're also bearish on that. That is this Friday in the AM. Those are our 2 picks.
Now you see, why do you think the short interest is raising, rolling on UAL? Is it because of
Charlie? We cover 60,000 stocks.
It's hard.
We have a model. We just tell you and forecast. Now,
I can see bank PNC. They're a big credit card issuer, obviously, and Trump wants to cap it at 10%.
So that's right. And so there's there's a good story there, which is the if you look at the short interest in some of these stocks, like Affirm, for example, right, which is a really interesting, buy now, pay later. They used to be called layaway.
What's it called?
Affirm.
Affirm.
Yeah,
okay.
And people know that.
What's its symbol?
Symbols, AFRM. The short interest is up a lot, but the shorts could really get squeezed in the stock because basically, if the banks have to cap their credit card 10%, a firm like Affirm will do better because it's buy now, pay later. So
but it's actually kind of a worse deal for people.
It is a worse deal, but you'd be chasing them into things where they need liquidity.
Yeah.
A stock like this would actually do well. So we've been looking at it, and we've been looking at the short interest, and what's the 3-month price change is up 2%. The market cap's $25 billion. But you see that this is a potential squeezable stock. You can see if that's actually gets passed, so on. There's so much news.
Well, let's get to them. You've done your stock jockeying for, is that like a pejorative? I don't know.
A little bit, but
I'm sorry,
but that's okay. Yeah, we've been called a lot worse.
You can call me a hack anytime you want, which is a pejorative for a journalist. Let's get to some of the news. Now, let's start with the 10% cap. Now, I spent a lot of time with just say senior executives at JP Morgan and Bank of America explaining this thing.
Are they just freaking out about this?
They're totally freaking out. Now, I can't figure out how much is legitimate freak out or how much is sort of like, act freaked out. So the reporter says, here are all the bad things that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But they do make a good point that, okay, if you know anything about, and this gets to the fact that most people don't understand what a credit card, most people don't understand lending. They don't understand the bond market. I was listening to the great historian, and he's an historian and an economist in many ways, Niall Ferguson.
He's fantastic.
And by the way, I'll be in Davos next week. I'll be moderating a panel with him on it. And
think he'd come on? I don't know.
Was that?
I'd love to. Just as an aside, I'm a big fan.
Well, I'll tell him that. I'll get his autograph for you. And he is a really smart guy. And he wrote a book about the financial crisis, and he made this great point. And most people don't understand what a bond is. They don't understand that we have an economy and a financial system. It's not just about stocks. It's about this lending market.
Promise to pay.
Credit. And your word is as good as your bond.
Right.
Right. And people charge you an interest rate based on what they perceive your ability to repay and the risk they're taking to lend you money. So if you think about it, a credit card usage, and we take it for granted, is the ultimate risk. And it is for a bank. It's unsecured, meaning that if you, average guy in the street, say you make
walk away,
$80,000 a year, and you get a credit card with a line of credit of $1,000.
Yep.
And you go out and you go to Bergdorf Goodman and you blow that line of credit to $1,000. They can't tap into, even if you have a bank account with them where you got direct deposit into, let's say, Chase or whoever, PNC, they can't tap into that. It's unsecured. It's illegal for them to garnish your wage on that. So they're literally just giving you money based on a set of parameters that you filled out on a sheet of paper. Yeah. And if they do check if you do make $80,000 a year, right. They do monitor you if you're getting close to those, right. to a certain danger point.
Right.
But all that costs a lot of money to create that system and price in the risk, which it costs more than a 10% VIG, so to speak.
Right.
They claim that their interest rates, which go up to like 30%, if you want to pay for all that stuff, if you want to account for the unsecured nature, pay for the fraud prevention, pay for the servicing, we're talking.
But Trump's doing something different, right? And this is you said this is like 4-dimensional chess. So the thinking I've been doing is he has taken some of the theater that we have here in New York City around affordability, free buses and the housing. And he's saying, I'm the president. And if I want to own the affordability issue, this is what I'm going to go do.
Yeah, he is doing it.
He's doing it, but
is it effective?
Well, can he get it done?
Well, can he get it done? It is effective. I mean, he listen, I generally support Donald Trump for a lot of reasons, including the alternative is just insane. I mean, all you have to do is look at the faces of the people protesting You think about that. People get up in the morning to.
Well, you've had a very active week on X.
Yeah, I mean, protesting ICE. Yeah, some of my tweets got picked up by the Daily Mail. It was just weird. But these people that look like they just got released from the insane asylum, and there's lots of them screaming at ICE officers, right? We do have, that is the face of the Democratic Party right now. So when I say I support Trump, part of me also, and I don't think I'm alone, is like, look at the alternatives, right?
Well, but that's my point.
But generally, but Bob, I'm not like the majority. I mean, he's got horrible approvals on the economy. So whatever he's doing with, capping credit card fees or telling Blackstone you can't go out and
that's the second thing,
buy homes.
And then also Freddie and Fannie, we made $200 billion. We want to do QE, the Fed to bring down your mortgages. So he's trying to own these issues.
But it's not working. It's just because I just think that these issues are beside the point.
Why?
Well, because when let's do a deep dive into credit cards, because I've done some reporting on this. The people at JP Morgan and Bank of America say that generally the people that are stuck paying these 30% interest rates, these working class Americans, are not paying it because they went to Bergdorf Goodman and bought a bunch of, suits and shoes or whatever.
No,
right?
Because they're trying to make ends meet. That's half the population.
It's healthcare costs.
Right.
It's automobiles that cost a lot of money.
That's right.
And by the way,
necessities, like people need cars to do their job in the middle of the country.
I mean, it's food or whatever.
Right, food,
and,
right.
And that's the problem. The problem is that, healthcare costs are too high. Obamacare has never worked and no one's ever reformed it. Inflation is still sticky high. And people using their credit cards to pay for a lot of stuff.
But if we have oil and gasoline prices come down,
hopefully
that has an effect on inflation.
Although we do have such a,
but that's 4 years down the road, as we talked about last week.
Right, it could take a while, and plus our economy is less dependent on that stuff for a lot of reasons. The environmental movement, sort of squeezed a lot of fossil fuels out of the sort of necessity part of the economy, and you know that. So I mean, cars are much more fuel efficient. I mean, you go down the so. I wonder if the lower gas prices really matter that much. They do at some point, but
it matters to the inflation calculation. But,
yeah. So I just think that's what they're telling me. So this credit card cap is sort of a Band-Aid on a bigger problem, which is healthcare and general affordability. So I think that's one of the problems with this stuff. And even if you and by the way, to cap it, you have to go to Congress to cap it. And by the way, and then what's to stop JP Morgan from saying,
we're out of this business.
We're out of this business. Is it
nothing.
Worth it?
No, nothing.
Our earnings will get cut by 20%, but we'll still make a shitload of money, right? Because they will.
Right.
JP Morgan makes money just being there. They have a bunch of deposits that they pay 0 or 0.1.
Yep.
And they can buy a treasury bond, which they get. I mean, just make that. You could just theoretically make that spread all day long.
All day long,
right?
Yes.
Okay,
at least the retail side of the bank.
So that's where I think that's the problem with that. Now I did some work on the other big alleged coming executive order on housing, where Trump says he wants to stop private equity from
buying single family homes.
Now it was funny though. One of the comical things is that Blackstone is big in that business. But apparently BlackRock keeps getting the shit kicked out of it on Twitter.
People are confused
because they think it's the stone is the rock. And so BlackRock did sort of put together a rapid response team to go on social media to say, listen, we're not Blackstone, we're BlackRock. We are mostly passive investing. We're an asset manager. Right. And so it's just funny. I'm going to write something about this in a post, just FYI. But, when I talk to some of the people at Blackstone, what they tell me is that they buy most of these homes in the Sun Belt where there's not like a real housing affordability crisis. That sort of affordability crisis with housing is generally in the Northeast.
Yes,
for lots of reasons, including unions and zoning,
just bad housing policy,
and New York City bad housing price,
way bad. No one can figure out that you just need more supply to bring the price down.
It's hard to do supply in certain places, and
but you can make it harder, which is what they've done.
Yeah, so it's really they've not. again, you go after Blackstone, okay?
Because we had Tom, we had Tom Shapiro on, who runs a pretty sizable real estate portfolio on the show. And he laid it out there very, very, very eloquently. It's like, look, if you make it so that I have to have a certain amount, if the unit size of the building is X and the Y is you have to have a certain amount of rent controlled apartments, if you make Y too big, you don't get to X.
Yeah, it's just,
it doesn't exist.
It's crazy. So what could allow more building anywhere? Well, change zoning laws. I don't know. I mean, the government is standing in the way of this, and it's not Blackstone who's really at fault here. That's why this whole thing is probably not going to impact affordability that much.
Well, but maybe it's telling us something that,
and by the way,
I don't like to hear as a free market capitalist, which I don't like to hear, which is that the narrative and the messaging of if you make zero, you pay zero rent, but if you make $500,000 or somewhere in the zone of that, you pay $150,000, and the collective owns the whole thing, and it's batshit crazy.
That's the Mondami,
and it may be telling us that narrative is a little stronger than we think.
I just wonder, because part of that narrative is to take homes away from from white people. Did you hear what that person said? And then they found her white mother owning a very expensive home in a gentrified area of Nashville.
By the way, in most of the country, if you own something north of $1 million, that is a very, 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 very high end neighborhood.
Oh yeah, of course.
And it's the value of their home is $1.6 million, and here, which by the way, I don't know. I guess if she were related to me, I might not leave it to her in my will, but that's okay. But what I would say to you is, that's a lot of money. And here you are telling about, if you're here in New York City, we want to own the whole thing. I mean, the whole thing is just crazy.
No, it's just so nuts. But
that's my point, is like that craziness has an impact.
It has a saliency until you sort of scratch the surface, and it's not working for Trump yet. Anyway, Jerome Powell, should he be charged with perjury?
I mean,
it sounds so stupid. I mean, it sounds conjured. I mean, I talk to a lot of MAGA Republicans, and they're like, it sounds stupid. I mean, they don't like Jerome Powell because they think he was a lousy Fed chair.
His term is up in May. Like, come on, just replace him.
So what they're trying to say is that he lied before Congress when he sort of understated the amount of the renovations in the Fed. But I mean, would he be the first bureaucrat that got that number wrong?
But don't get me wrong here. Can't he stay? He can stay on as a governor. Doesn't have to be the head of the Fed. Doesn't have to be the chairman of the Fed. He can stay on as a governor.
I mean, he could shove it up Trump's rear end by saying, "Fuck you, I'm staying as a governor.
I'm staying as a governor
now because you're threatening Fed independence, and I'm going to."
That's not what I'm going to do. Right.
No, there is so what I understand from my Wall Street sources deal with the White House is that they say there's really the vast majority of Trump's senior staff hate this attack on Powell. It was kind of like someone thought it was a good idea in Justice Department just to kiss up to Trump, and so they did it. Either he knew or he didn't know, whatever it was. But Besson apparently has been out there saying it's not a great, at least privately. The problem is that Trump just hates Powell. So he said the other day he's either incompetent or crooked. Do you know he said that about the overspending? We should point out that apparently the Fed's budget does not come from the Treasury, right?
You got me there.
It
would make sense, right? Because there needs to be
they have a balance sheet,
right?
It's not financed by so it came out of their balance sheet, which, as we know, is pretty big.
Yes. Very well.
Right. Yeah. And so they own a lot of
the swap lines come from the Fed. The QE, et cetera, come from the Fed, et cetera, et cetera. And they can print money. So yes, it could be as big as they want it to be.
That's the interesting part. They're paying for it, not the taxpayer. So people just hate it. They think and here's the thing. When you start really messing with Fed independence, and again, no one's totally independent, but if you get into someone's mind that Trump could just inflate the economy because he could he could investigate someone over something stupid. Well, let me tell you something. That's you're rolling the dice, because the bond market, let's face it, again, Liberation Day was reversed, or Genie largely put it back in the bottle, not totally, because of a bond market reaction, or ruction, as they say.
Yes.
One more headline for me.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers Discovery.
Yeah.
Netflix I think so. Netflix yesterday did an interesting move. They basically said that they're going to go all cash in their bid. Okay. Now, I think the reason why they did that is because of my reporting. I hate to
Well, you have been the source, the center.
I kept
the epicenter of that story.
Reporting that their bid makes no sense. It's 85-25, 85-15 cash stock. So still largely cash, but there's a lot of stock involved from Netflix. Netflix stock, though, has lost $160 billion in value since this kind of thing started.
I think that got someone's attention.
Yes, so literally the stock value. Now there was a collar that they put on this to protect the price, but it blew through the collar. On top of it, there's stock involved in a separate sale because remember, Netflix is just buying the streaming service and the studio.
Yes.
They're telling investors you get more money and it's better than the Paramount bid, which is $30 all cash for the whole company, because we're separately going to sell CNN and all these, and we're going to get at least $3 a share. And people are looking at that's not going to happen because of what's going on with Versant, the Comcast spinoff, which is kind of sucked.
Yeah,
so
not kind of.
Yes. So this thing is in flux right now. Now the question is, does Paramount come back with a higher bid? And I do know, as we are taping today, they're in meetings right now. I think the feeling right now is they don't have to. And here's why. They still think Netflix is never going to get their deal through the Trump regulatory apparatus. Trump tweeted out something nasty about Netflix as it features too many, non-conservative programming. He's, as you know, good friends with Paramount's Larry Ellison, the head of Oracle. Right. Co-founder of Oracle, is a good friend with Trump. His son is leading Paramount Skydance, David Ellison, the independent movie producer. So they think that this thing is not going to get through. And there's a theory that, hey, let's just wait and let this thing blow up on its own, then buy it cheaper.
We got so many things consolidating. You have oil, media, technology. The interesting thing that he came out with, the defense stocks, you can't buy back your stock because you're not performing well. He's wants to increase the defense budget by $500 billion. Keeps talking about taking over Greenland, right? We had an action in Venezuela. It seems like you have imminent action in Iran. I don't know how a guy like Trump, that has always been on his front foot in terms of exerting authority and giving people that 5 or 10% of, I don't know what he's going to do to destabilize people. It's hard for me to see how you don't react to that. Maybe he surprises us with some restraint, but I don't see how. But maybe there's they did something in Venezuela people didn't think could be done. So.
Someone just told me on the Netflix stuff, exclusive. This is my friend, colleague over at the New York Post, James Franey. Mm-hmm. Queen Elizabeth II banned the Netflix CEO from swanky Windsor Castle bash over the Crown's portrayal of British royal sources. Did you see the Crown? I didn't see them.
I thought listen, that's all cotton candy.
But did they piss all over the royals?
They made certain people look fairly smarmy and not the highest moral character. I say that's an accurate depiction.
Trump really took a shot at Netflix last week, and he said, he retweeted a op-ed that said, that they are pushing a leftist agenda. There is a movie on Netflix apparently about a transsexual coal miner.
How many of those are there?
Did you watch that?
I haven't watched that, but I will on your recommendation. If you tell me you like it, I'll go do it.
I have no opinion. Anything I say here gets me in trouble, but it just sounds like it's kind of, a counterintuitive programming move when you're trying to kiss up to Mr. MAGA, Donald Trump. But, that's it for my headlines this week, Bob. Any predictions for next week? Do we bomb Iran? When?
I don't know if we bomb Iran, but I think we have one thing that's very clear for Venezuela. We have things in our toolkit that no one else has. And the question is whether or not we want to expose it or not and how we do it.
By the way, Joe Biden tried to demoralize, and there's been a lot of reporting on this. The armed services DEI it to death. And when it really comes down to, you need really tough men, well trained, to carry out these missions, to be in the Marines, to be in the Army. And Trump is doing that. And if you really want to know how well our Army is and our armed forces are trained, look at what they did. Delta Force came in. I mean, that was just like, it was like a Nintendo game, or not Nintendo, like it
was the greatest raid since Entebbe, right? Entebbe. Or up there with the beeper bomb. I mean, these were things that were just amazing. It was an amazing thing that we did, and
it was like a computerized
but
thing,
I also
but it was
think,
real,
But I also think it means too that our organizations are learning. So one of the things that is, to me, is happening is that the administration narrative is moving way ahead of media's ability to keep up with it. So I'll give
some of that.
I give it some of that, right? So I give you an example. No one, and I would be the first one to tell you that Iraq was a bad idea. They knew it was a bad idea. Colin Powell said it was a bad idea.
You break it, you own it.
You break it, you own it. And he was right. And he was right the first time. And he was right the second time. They stopped.
Right.
And then they went. Nation building, not what we do. Now, what did we do? We looked at that and said, maybe that wasn't such a great idea. What did we learn? We learned that you got to snatch the top guy, deal with the people underneath them, keep things intact, and let's roll the dice that way. We're not going to send 30,000, get 30,000 casualties and have a whole generation of people have PTSD, be maimed, blood and treasure of $1 trillion. And what I thought was so interesting about Koenigsberger last week is saying the GDP of Iraq went from 50 billion to 250 billion during that time, and it had inured no benefit to the United States. So no one wants that.
And that sticks in Donald Trump's cross.
Rightly. But our organization learned from that. They learned that we can't do it this way, just like we learned from Vietnam when we went into Gulf War. Somehow we forgot it into Gulf II. Now we relearned it here in Venezuela, doing an incredible snatch and grab. And so I'm thinking, our organizations are alive.
Yeah.
They're learning. And that's a great thing. And that's an optimistic thing.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of like, when we go after Trump here, we're kind of like, a lot of this is around the edges. I mean, directionally, the country, and this is what scares me about what's around the edges, how it's dominating the media sort of dialogue.
Well, I want to talk to you about your conversation with Ro Khanna, because I joined that one too.
Okay, but just let me make this point.
Okay,
the directionally, the country is going in such a much better direction. And, in so many ways, we're reestablishing a meritocracy, both in business. JP Morgan took down its DEI platform, and they're on notice.
Yeah.
The Trump administration is saying, if you're a white guy and JP Morgan is discriminating against you, sue and we'll join.
Right. The civil rights, it's interesting that the Civil Rights Division is now functioning that way.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's much more of a fairness thing. Can't do that stuff on a college campus, but you can. But if you get caught, you get sued.
I think that says a lot too, right? The Columbia campus is empty today, and we have many thousands of people.
Well, they're just
threatened with execution.
They're just hypocrites.
It's just ridiculous.
It just shows you how the left is so hypocritical.
It's ridiculous that we can't get behind people that actually want.
Anyway, where's Mondami on this? Isn't Mondami is a Muslim?
It's a good question.
Most of the people getting mowed down in the street.
Well, we don't know if he's a fundamentalist or a Shia. We don't actually. I don't know.
Or
something else.
But he mixes. I think he's part. I mean, I think his identity is that Islam, but I think he mixes it with cultural Marxism, which there's a lot of people like that, and and they're an interesting mix. So they actually oppose Israel not just because it
doesn't fit into the colonizer oppressed
it's
narrative.
It's a colonizer
right. You
oppressed
have
narrative
a people that hate having their currency debased by 99%.
Yep.
And hello. Anybody in New York City, please watch that and understand that when the purchasing power of a currency falls dramatically, the people don't like that.
They actually despise it.
They despise it.
They hate inflation. Inflation is a tax on the working class and the poor. Let's end this on the Ro Khanna thing. I almost forgot. What did I say to that dude?
Well,
he's the congressman from Silicon Valley.
The issue is that there's a union in California that wants to put on the ballot, is trying to get, I think, 80,000 signatures to confiscate the wealth of billionaires in a quote unquote one-time tax. And we all know that that's nonsense. So it'll be many, many times. Right. And here's what happened. There's like 100 billionaires in California.
Peter Thiel, Larry Page,
the usual suspects, right? And not that they're suspects, but the usual people you would put in a line of who's a billionaire. And all of a sudden, people started leaving, right? And this is what's New York City's gamble. It's like, no, people won't leave. So it turns out, there's a lot of really great stuff on X about this. Who's left? They had $2 trillion worth of taxable wealth that went to $1 trillion.
Really? That's amazing.
And so, okay, let's try to confiscate this. And the way it was written, by the way, it was very much a subterfuge, right? It was not actually accurately relayed by Congressman Khanna, who is the rep in that district in Silicon Valley. Yeah. He was saying, well, if you own a certain amount of public company, then that's what we'll take, right? It's a wealth tax. Well, actually, the law says if you control 16% of the vote, 60% of the vote, we'll take 60% of your wealth, not 5%. So you can own 10% of a company, but you can own many more of the voting stock. So we're going to do it on that. And people freaked out and they left.
Well, it's so stupid. I think billionaires, most of them that I know, and most of them are pretty progressive. They may be libertarian, but they're in the progressive range. They wouldn't mind being taxed extra if it went to paying down the deficit, or if government, it was if government was responsible. I mean, California is the least responsible state in the union.
But think about this, Charlie, for a second.
But let me ask you this: was his billionaire's tax was a statewide tax?
Statewide tax.
So it went into the state cost.
It was to try to close the healthcare costs. They have $70 billion.
And by the way, why do they have high healthcare costs? You know why? They give healthcare to illegal immigrants for years. And this Medi-Cal or whatever it's called, they've actually just stopped giving it to illegal immigrants. And so if you're Larry Page, you're like,
what am I doing here?
Why am I doing this? And who are these idiots?
But here's Gavin
Newsom, I kind of hope he runs for president because he's so fucking stupid.
Well, he loves you.
I love him. He is the gift that keeps on giving. He's a good-looking guy that's a complete dope. He literally fits the sort of what can I call it? It's like the stereotype of the dumb jock. Only I bet you he was bad at sports. He doesn't look very athletic.
Just one final point on that, and then we'll close the show. So think about this for a second as policy.
Right.
You say, okay, let's tax the rich, right? This is what the far left loves. They say, please, let's tax the rich. Okay, so we tax the rich. We're going to take away your wealth in a one-time tax. If you're a billionaire, you don't need the money. We're going to take away your wealth. But who are these people? They're the very people that make up a lot of the index.
Yeah.
That your pensioners, your teachers, your firemen, your policemen, the CalPERS, the CalSTRS, they own a lot of these indices. And so you're going to force people to sell stocks in your portfolio.
I know, it's so stupid.
It's the most stupid thing.
It reminded me of when that moron who is, the guy that...
No shortage today, by the way.
The guy that presided over one of the greatest welfare frauds of all time, Tim Walz, nearly our vice president, who's the dumbest dude. I mean, creepy looking and just bad on policy. He attacked Elon, saying that, he loves the fact that Tesla stock's going down. He kind of was indulging in this sort of Schadenfreude around. Remember when Tesla was
totally
protested and people were...
Well, it was great that people were keying the cars and so setting them on fire and all that.
Indulging in some of that. I'm not saying he advocated that directly, but he was indulging in it. And he says, I got Tesla. It's going down. Great. He's so fucking stupid because in the Minnesota pension fund was all these Tesla shares. So now I checked. I went back and found out that Waltz is on the board of the Minnesota pension fund with that equally dumb motherfucker, Keith Ellison. Excuse my French. He's the attorney general. So I raised the question. Why isn't the attorney general charging the governor with violating his fiduciary responsibility?
Right.
I mean, this is why
it's crazy.
This is why I am telling you that the left has lost their minds. Totally lost their minds. And, as crazy as Trump, and he does some crazy shit, let's face it.
The Fed thing is a crazy thing.
The Rob Reiner tweet.
Crazy.
And
despicable. Sorry.
He's better than the alternative. You can't, it's not even close. The alternative is insane.
Well, that's what makes a horse race, right?
I guess so. So and you know what's great about this insanity, this push and pull? It has impact on markets.
Yes.
It comes out in S3's data.
And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about shipping. And think about all the ground we covered today. Shipping, tariffs, battleground stocks. We talked about, UAL. We talked about PNC. We talked about so much that is, by the way, and let's end on this. This is a stock pickers market. Last year, NVIDIA was leading the way.
So you just
the correlation broke down, right? And so now it's a different character, and that's why we talked about last week. People have risk on. Short positions are up 35% year over year. Active long positions up 20%, and your passive longs up 25%. So more dollars at play. Risk is on. And people are just bullish.
And when it's a stock pickers market, you need information.
You need to understand positioning on long, short, on either side.
We're here to provide that. All right, I'm going to end it there, Bob. Great episode. Next week, I'll be in Davos. Well, unless something happens with technologically, we'll be half live from Davos for the World Economic Forum. And we'll be doing risk, and I will be there. Bob will be here, and we'll be kicking some ass. Again, thank you for joining us. See you next week.